we talk about parking issues, and you can see right here, we've got this parking lot. And we always talk about that, the parking lot, you can't ever park there. It's full today, but it's not full. There's a bunch of parking spaces. But there's 3 parking problems in Charlotte. The first parking problem is the one everybody talks about, is the Wednesday nights and the Saturday nights, the peak events, when there's just simply more cars than spaces. There's no answer to that other than shuttling, because you don't want to build another 1,000 parking spaces in Charlotte. When you think about the great communities on the waterfront, rarely do you see a giant parking lot in the great communities on the waterfront. The parking is elsewhere. It's kind of odd that it's here, actually. You certainly don't want to build another 1,000 cars for just those peak events. So that's one parking problem. The second parking problem is on a day like today, I'm coming down, it's a Saturday, I'm not going to take a shuttle with my kids. Of course you're not going to do that. There's enough parking spaces here, but sometimes it's a struggle to find one. So the City of Rochester is doing something called the Port Intelligent Transportation System, which will help tell people, it'll monitor these parking lots, and there'll be message boards. It's actually under construction now. It's going to be, I think it's going to be starting to be tested in August and into the fall, and then it'll be fully active next spring. And so you'll come up on a sign like back by a lake, or maybe as you're coming in from Greece, it'll say, beach lots full, use alternate X. So when you come up here on those, later today, I'm sure there'll be people circling around up here trying to find a parking space. Well, about half of the people circling around in the traffic jam are going in circles, waiting for somebody to leave, and they're not going to leave, right? So the transportation system is going to give them information. Look, don't even go up there. There's no parking. Go to alternate X, Y, or Z and direct people. And that'll also help at the end of fireworks, when the 4 people are out here with the flashlights directing traffic, there'll be people with cameras looking at it going, all right, let all the southbound go, and they'll be being directed. So instead of just what the person can see with their own eyes, they're going to get vision from above, so that there'll be a much more effective strategy.
Where will the alternative parking be? There's a couple of lots further south on Lake.
There's a number of different locations. If you go on Port of Rochester, or go to the Port of Rochester Marina, Google that, you'll find it on the city's website. And there's a whole EIS with a parking study in there. It tells you all the answers that's in there. Some of them are down by Kodak, some of them are west over by Greece. And they're not in Greece, but they're over that way. And there's those locations. But those 2 parking problems, that's 3 months a year. And honestly, that's not the worst parking problem we have in Charlotte. The parking problem in Charlotte we need to solve is the empty parking spaces in September, October, November, March, April, May. And that's really what's going to transform this neighborhood. It's not about transforming it in the summertime. We're mobbed with people, but there's a reason there are not more shops and things like Park Avenue and East Ave. There's a reason that's not here, is because there's not enough density year-round to support those kinds of things. Right. People want to have, people want the Parkley Pharmacy sitting right here. That's what everybody wants. Yeah. The only way you get that is enough density of people around it to support it year-round. So what this project is meant to do is to create a critical mass of new families, owner-occupied housing, people who are committed to being here, who live here year-round, and they're going to make that possible by being here. Windjammers and Dominic's and Hose 22 and what he's building over there, those things, they're doing great. Abbott's is doing great. They'll all be fine in the summertime, but they all struggle a little bit, and they all need a little help in the winter, and we're going to be able to give it to them by having more residents. Yeah. So by solving that problem, we'll always be able to deal with this. My long-term vision, really, my long-term dream is that when Charlotte neighborhood, really starts to pick up, and this will be a catalyst, and the west side of Lake really starts to pick up and become more like East Ave and those places, that someday we can move this parking to the other end of the site here and turn this all into park. Yeah. Because the greatest waterfront communities don't have giant parking lots on their beach. They've got this is park space, and we can move the parking that way a block or two and figure that out so people can come down here. And just imagine 20 years from now, this is all great. There's a whole bunch of happy people down here. The shops are going like crazy. We've got great restaurants and great retail. And then this is all more park and water space. It's going to be amazing. It's the waterfront Rochester deserves, and Charlotte really can be. Yeah. So that's the long-term vision, I think, for me.
I heard just anecdotally, some people have brought up the idea of using maybe the old Russell Station RG&E site. Yep. There's also some other like grassy fields and stuff as parking off-site, and then connecting that parking with Charlotte via a trolley that would use the old rail. Yep. Right. Yeah. How feasible is that, do you think?
I think it's totally feasible. The question is working with CSX, and if you've ever negotiated with the rail line, that's not easy. I'd rather negotiate with the North Koreans. We're just picking on them, but it's just
a good analogy.
That's their thing. All they have is that right away, and so they're very protective of it, and rightly so. It's their business.
So what's the parking loss?
Okay, so basically there's a whole lot of parking down here, and if you go on the EIS and look in the parking study, it'll document all this. But basically, the before and after is a net loss of somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 spaces. I don't know the exact number, but it's in that range. There's new parking already constructed, a new lot that already opened that's a part of that solution. As you move down North River Street, we're creating dozens and dozens of spaces down here. Many of the spaces, many of the paved areas that were part of the terminal building were never open to parking, so those don't count. As you move down to the end there, we're creating new parking. So again, we're back to that solution of when you do the counts, even after this is all done, even taking into account the new development, because that's what the environmental impact statement did, that's how they determined the total number of units allowed in the whole entire development, took all that into account. You still have the same problem on Wednesdays and Saturdays. You're still going to have more cars than spaces, and that's okay. Those peak events, you don't want to park them all. The rest of the time, we're still having we don't create any new times when people get turned away. The Port Intelligent Transportation System will help people find those spaces, make that easier. Everybody who parks for my development has to park on my site. It's that simple.